In this segment, we're going to take a look at the survival of the Greek culture that we were introduced to you in the earlier segments, where we had an opportunity to take a look at Sparta and at Athens and have a general understanding of some of the ideas that went into the creation of those places. Each of them will, of course, be a model as we move into the Western societies and cultures to come. But none of this happens if the Greeks are obliterated. And so this segment is about essentially the military survival of the Greeks first, and then second, their ability to export many of their ideas and concepts to the rest of the world. So let's start with this. We all know the phrase, the friend of my enemy is my enemy too. So even though the Greeks are going to be not looking, in the case of Athens or Sparta, they're not looking for a confrontation with the Persian Empire on the horizon. They're not looking for this battle. But the Persian experience is simply this. Anybody who aids my enemy is my enemy. And so let's start with that simple idea. When the Persian Empire of Cyrus the Great and his successors had been militarily expanding, they got to the point where they expanded all across the old world of Mesopotamia, down onto the edge of Egypt, and in the process took over many areas filled with Greek city-states in what you know as the modern-day state of Turkey. So here are some Greek-inspired cities that are poleis, right? That are connected with their Greeks across the water, and they have lots of shared common understandings of trade and religion and culture. But now they're conquered and controlled by the Persians. In 499 BCE, many of these Greek city-states went into open rebellion against the Persians. And in that process, they asked for some assistance from their Greek friends across the water. Several different Greek city-states had participated in aiding these Greeks fighting the Persians. And from the understanding of the Persians, anybody helping my enemy is now going to be my enemy as well. So as we look to this, the rebellion that they had started in 499 BCE is eventually going to be petered out. The Persians are going to come in, reconquer all the significant areas of these rebellious Greek city-states, and now, not letting it go at that, want to go after and have revenge against the Greeks outside their realm who also helped foment and lead this rebellion. In that case, there's two Greek city-states that are targeted by the Persians. One, a place called Eretria, and the other is the polis of Athens. In 490, the Persian military forces are gathered and they are sent across the Aegean Sea, relatively small bit of the Mediterranean, from modern-day Turkey to modern-day Greece, if you want to visualize this. And when they get to this city, they obliterate it. Militarily, they destroy the place, they kill many people, and essentially the Persian answer is, since you rebelled and since you aided our enemy, we're going to treat you as an enemy and we're going to destroy you. So even before the Persians are getting close to the city of Athens, it's well known exactly what's going to happen to Athens. So, when the Athenians think about their immediate future, they recognize that they're going to have to militarily take on a Persian invading army, and they're going to have to do it in a relatively efficient manner, and they're going to have to find a way to be victorious. Now, the way that Cyrus the Great and his descendants in Persia thought of themselves, there's an old saying sort of within the Persian culture that the king of kings, right, the leader of leaders is in the leader of the Persian Empire, and essentially their understanding is they control everything from one horizon to the other. In other words, there are no places that can resist them, and if the Persians decide to take a place, it will be taken. In that idea, then, one Greek city-state has been just destroyed, and now Athens is next on the list. The Persian army lands on a shore near Athens at a place called Marathon, and it's 26.2 miles away from Athens, and we'll get back to that in a minute. Now, as the Persian forces are resting, all right, the idea is that the Persians are going to, of course, defeat the Greeks. That's what always happens, but it doesn't work that way. The Athenians win the battle that day at Marathon, and now the question is, now that we have defeated the Persians once, are they going to come back? And the Greeks are very sure that it's not a matter of if, right? It's not a matter of if the Persians are going to come back, it's when. The Persians are not going to allow any military setback to stop them, because one of the ways in which the Persian Empire operates is they always obliterate their enemy. And if the rumor gets out that the Greeks, in this case the Athenians, have gotten away with defying the great emperor, well, that means that other people are going to have an example that they too could defy the Persian emperor. And the Persian Empire functions on the basis of a very strong centralized authority, intimidating all the people in the empire, giving them just enough authority to function, but with the idea that if you do not obey, you will be attacked. So now the Persians are out there, they're planning their return. The Greeks in Athens are not living under some sort of cloud of doubt. They know the Persians are coming back, and they have to think of how they're going to survive as a society, as a culture. There are some who would like to be like other Greeks and colonize someplace else, pick up and move someplace else. And as you've probably seen in your text so far, the Greeks are very good at colonizing, moving other places outside the physical area of Greece, founding city-states in places as wild as diverse as modern Russia, modern Ukraine, and all the way to Spain, for example. So the Greeks already have a long tradition of spreading around, but the Athenians don't want to just surrender, just pack up their bags and leave. They want to fight. But they have to try to determine how are they going to be able to survive. The Persians supposedly have armies that can drink rivers dry and have so many soldiers that it's amazing. Now, a lot of that is hyperbole, a lot of that is myth, but here's what's going to happen. Sometimes in life, there are some people who are able to push decisions certain directions, and the difference is amazing. In this case, there are in the territory of Athens a series of silver strikes, meaning they discover some silver, all right, in many of the mountains around Athens inside the polis, and now they're going to be able to exploit that silver. And in one tradition, the idea is, okay, well, let's take however much silver we encounter in our territory, divide it up amongst the male citizens, and there, everybody was a beneficiary. That would be the easy thing. Instead, a local politician, his name is Themistocles, he comes to the Athenians and say, listen, we know the Persians are coming back. We have no illusions. What if we took that money, that silver strike, exploited it as much as we could, and we used that money to build some significant ships, all right? And what he's saying now is simply this. Let's think about this. A Greek city-state, relatively small like Athens, is going to be in many ways looking for allies. The Greeks do not have a long history of cooperating with each other, as you know. And so essentially the whole brunt, the whole force of the Persian Empire is going to come against one city-state, in this case Athens. Marathon was sort of a fluke. They were able in a small battle to defend Athens, and of course, as you know, it's 26.2 miles from Athens, and we know that because the people who ran back from the battlefield to Athens, that of course is celebrated today in the context of the idea of a marathon as a long race. Well, the Persians are coming, the Persians are coming, the Persians are coming. They're going to have so many soldiers on land, they're just going to be, so hard to count, and we are so few. But what if we could get the Persians to fight us on the water? This is the Athenian idea, this is the idea of Themistocles and others. We know we're heavily outnumbered on land, and that's not good odds. But if we could get them to try and fight us on the water, we might have a better advantage, or we would have some kind of advantage, or it just wouldn't be as bad, as terrible, as being on the land. So, this idea of building these things called triremes, okay? It is a relatively large and expensive ship. It has lots and lots of rowers, 3 of them. And it's a ship that is sort of going to be the ultimate statement of military power. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of men, and a lot of money to build these things. But there's no amount of army that they can build in Rome, that they can build in Athens to protect them from the Persians. There is no amount of men they can find. Their best hope is to go and have this battle at sea. So the planting of that seed of trying to get the Persians to fight them on the water comes relatively early. By 480, Xerxes, who is now the emperor and the controller of the Persian Empire, organizes his forces, and he's coming back. And the Greeks have no illusions of what's going to happen next. Now, here's a relatively simple map. And what I want to show you here is a couple of things. Remember, these were those Greek city-states that had gone into open rebellion back in 499. And they had had help from their allies over here in what you know as modern-day Greece, especially the Athenians and the people from Eritrea. Now in 490, when they had come back, they fought the Battle of Marathon, and you can see that on the map, not too far from Athens. What I want you to think about now is that the Athenians, along with some of their allies, are very concerned that they don't have much of an opportunity here, but they do have to try and do some things. So what will happen is as the allies of the Persians, right, are marching along and coming along this way, they're going to come into central Greece. And at a place called Thermopylae, in a small gap in the mountains, there's going to be a famous contingent of Spartan soldiers called the Spartan 300. Some of you might be familiar with the graphic novel that talks about the Spartan 300, or just the legend itself in terms of the Spartans. Now remember, Spartans prided themselves as soldiers on the idea that they are either victorious or they die. There is no surrender. There's no compromise. That we've seen in the sense of how they were trained. At Thermopylae, the Persians are backing up against this very narrow valley. The Persians are then trying to break through. Eventually, they do get around and slaughter all of the Spartans who were in their way. But this battle called Thermopylae gives the Persians a delay, and they cannot get everything done that they want. So when they finally do get to Athens, everyone has left. Athens is abandoned. Now remember, the strategy was there's no way that the Athenians can hold out against the Persians. There's just no way. It's not going to work. So instead, what has happened is they have now gone out and left Athens and moved out here into a small area called Salamis. It's an island. An island. Oh. Now you're going to try and force the hand of the Persians. If the Persians are going to come and get the Athenians and some other of their Greek allies, they're going to have to come on the water, which is exactly the strategy that Themistocles has been planning all these years. So, with the idea now that the Persians have to come on water, they were stopped temporarily at Thermopylae, and now they have to come and get the Greeks out on the island of Salamis. Once again, Themistocles and his long-term planning, massive investment in a navy with the idea that you were going to give up on trying to defeat the Persians on land, it's now coming true. So the tricky part's going to be to get the Persians and their allies on the water to come after the Greeks. They do it. There's a series of rumors that are spread, and the Xerxes, the emperor, is sitting on the shoreline waiting for his great military triumph. His soldiers and sailors go into the ships, into the water, and the Greeks have an advantage. They're much better in terms of manipulating their ships and sails, much better at seamanship, and of course have these very heavy-duty ships. Okay? Athens, remember, had been obliterated. But that was always part of the plan anyway. Holding on to the territory that is Athens, the city itself, was never the idea. The idea was to get the Persians out on the water, and that's where we can get them. That's where we have a better advantage. That day, off the island of Salamis, the Greeks defeat the Persians. The Persians have not lost everything, but they have lost a significant amount of strength. Xerxes, the emperor, feels that he must retreat, and he starts the process of retreating. And in the next year, there is another major military battle on land between the Spartans and other Greeks and the Persians lose that. And that's sort of the exclamation point. The loss at Marathon was the teaser that got the war going. And then next is going to be the idea that the Greeks will defeat them at sea, and then they will defeat them in the last land battle as they're retreating. The war is not over, but the Athenians and the Spartans, with many of their allies, have now saved the day. They're able now to continue to live independently. And they are going to be able, in the next generation, to reconstruct Athens. And we'll talk some more about this in the next segments. But here's a classic picture of the Greek Acropolis in Athens, with the major temple on the top called the Parthenon. This is going to be the new Athens. The old one was obliterated. And now, as the Greeks have survived this major challenge, they are going to go back to building and rebuilding, but they're also going to go back to their old Greek ways and start wars against each other and start to go after each other and stay in disharmony. The Persian threat helped them unify. Once the Persian threat is gone, they go back to disunity. Read some more carefully about this in the chapters and also make sure that you follow the basic ideas on the maps. And then, of course, do take those practice questions seriously and make sure that you have this understanding.